Do you know what Forrest Gump's Wi-Fi password is?
I don't know.
141.
So on this podcast, guys, we touch base on phishing, this idea that you need to train your employees, because we're talking about backups, right? Errors are going to happen. You got to have your backups. But what leads us to have to go to our backups most of the time is phishing attacks or a ransomware attack that happens. So you got to train your employees. You got to phish them, right? You got to send fake emails to them. You got to allow them to know when they've clicked on something. You got to retrain them.
Yeah.
You got to raise the security awareness up in your company. You got to get cyber insurance if you don't have cyber insurance. And in the last part, of course, you have to have backups.
That's it.
Sam, cheers.
Cheers, man.
Hey guys, welcome to Empower You, episode number 5, IT edition. We're going to be talking about some IT stuff.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun.
This is what we do.
Sam, I hear you have a joke. Go ahead and share your joke.
Yeah, man. I have some jokes, man. It's going to be funny. Do you know what Forrest Gump's...
Yeah, I did not drink.
Do you know what Forrest Gump's Wi-Fi password is?
Hold on. Do I know what Forrest Gump's
Wi-Fi password is?
I don't know.
141.
I did not even understand you.
One Forrest one.
One Forrest one. Oh my gosh.
Oh, man.
Okay. I thought that was hilarious.
That is hilarious.
One Forrest one. Okay. He didn't even finish the joke before I started laughing. He's so good.
Oh, dude.
Oh, man. Okay.
You want another one?
No, but I got tears in my eyes now, man. I'm laughing so hard. Okay, man. I am so glad that we're here for Empowering You, episode number 5. Today, guys, we're going to focus on some IT stuff. From our last conversation, we talked a little bit about some of the biggest cybersecurity risks, right, around human error, about what you need around the right team that you need on the IT side. The last episode, actually, before we even get into that, the last episode, number 4, if you haven't seen it, we interview one of our team members, Wayne Stevens.
It's a good one, man. Deep.
Which was really deep and kind of like super. It felt like, man, Dustin, you did such a good job on the trailer, and like it was so epic that I'm like, oh yeah, he is an employee. He's a team member here, but it seemed like he was like a guest from some crazy military background, and he did such a good job, man, just sharing his story. It was really deep. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you click on the video right here on the screen that Dustin's going to put up. But really powerful. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it.
For sure, man. He's been through a lot. It was a good, man, he opened up. So, I mean, it's really good to see somebody being transparent and all the struggles. You never know who it touches, man. So
you never know. Also, too, like in your work environment, I think the idea of mental health now is like becoming, I mean, it wasn't around even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But now it's one of those things where we're like having to discuss it, talk about it. You have to pay. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You have to pay attention.
You have to pay attention to it. And, you know, if you guys haven't seen the trailer yet, I'm going to spoil a little bit, but we had a moment where he was in his darkest time, and we didn't even know it. He was working for us early on. Like, this is the second year he was with us. And it was really shocking, really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. So make sure you guys watch it. It was pretty amazing. All right, Sam. In our last podcast, we talked about the right team environment, episode number 3, I believe. This one, we want to talk about how to mitigate risk a little bit more. So when you mentioned this in one of the episodes, but when you look at risk, what's the greatest solution for risk?
Oh, man. We tell it to our clients all the time, but it's backups.
That's right.
Backups, man. There's nothing that you can do in a lot of cases, man, that is the safest thing you can do in a lot of cases is backups. That is your ultimate protection.
Yeah.
And you know, whether it's viruses or let's say even your computer or something dies, man, you need backups. And so it used to be one of those things, man, you hope you did it, you didn't really think about it, but today the data we put in our computers is so important that we have to have it backed up. So yeah, man, I mean, hopefully that makes sense, but yeah, that's what we tell everybody. Do backups, man.
You know, one of the craziest stats that I recently read was just in a Forbes article right here. You can notice that I love this because this is so interesting. Microsoft, their brand name was utilized 30 million times last year. Amazon, 6.5 million times. And DocuSign, 3.5 million. Google, 2.6 million. DHL, 2 million. And Adobe, 1.5 million times for fake phishing attacks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are the brands that people are using the most. And they are actually fooling a lot of people. I mean, if you think about it, I think a huge percentage of the market uses Office 365. So all those fake, I mean, you can notice them, right? The pixels on the Microsoft logo are off. I mean, the quality's not there, but they're becoming more and more sophisticated.
Yeah.
It's
easy.
crazy.
I mean, man, with tools even like AI, I was reading an article the other day about how these fake calls that you get, man, from these like robocalls.
Deepfakes.
And things. Yeah. They're calling
Are you talking about deepfake specifically, or are you talking about just?
Well, I'm just saying like these robocall or I don't know, whatever they call them, but they're calling us to get us to say hello and talk a couple of minutes after, or let's say a couple of seconds even after we say hello, to record our voices, because then they can deep fake us, right? Like they can make AI generated voices based off of what we say, and then hopefully their goal is to then call our whoever coworkers, whatever it might be, and trick them into doing something malicious. Right?
If you call me, I'm probably not going to pick up now.
But it's out there, man. It's so crazy what the power of AI could do,
That's
So-
an area we got to talk about in a future episode.
Yeah,
is like just
for
the whole
sure.
deep fake side and the risk on any internal or MSP like ours. The risk of people impersonating people is crazy. The security precautions you have to have in place.
Yeah.
You know, one of the other stats that I thought was interesting is here on InfoSecurity Magazine, it says the share of mobile users in enterprise environments clicking on more than 6 malicious links annually. Mobile users, right? 6 malicious links annually jumped from 1.6% to 11.8% from 2020, 1.6% to 11.8% 2022. Why do you think that's happening?
Why do you think we're clicking on more?
Why do you think mobile users are clicking more on?
Because, I mean, the truth of it is, number one, man, a lot of the people that we deal with, they think it's safer to click on a mobile phone than it is on your computer, and things won't happen. That's not the case, right? You really want to be vigilant across all your devices and not click on just because it's Apple. Oh, nothing will happen. It's my phone. There's so many ways to get tricked, right? And things to happen anyways. But point of the story, I think that's why it's happening. And then also, I mean, that is the device of choice now. I mean, what device do you use the most out of all the devices you have? Right? It's your
Absolutely.
phone, right? So probably the latter than the first. But I mean, I think
It makes me think about these password management tools now and the importance of having those things. But even if you necessarily a ransomware attack hitting your files on your mobile phone is a little bit different than on your PCs, you're still potentially going to get phished. And the idea that they're going to steal your credentials, it doesn't matter. You put your credentials on your phone, or you put your credentials on a mobile browser, or you put your credentials on a web browser on a PC.
yeah.
They're still going to capture that.
Yep.
But what's shocking to me about this stat is that it's an increase of clicks, 6 times more likely, 6 malicious clicks annually jump from 1.6% to 11.8%. In an environment where like ransomware news and topics is increasing and training is increasing substantially. I don't know if it's the sequence or the frequency of training that needs to be increased in our environments. It's just shocking to me to see that number climb up so much.
Yeah, I mean, and it's ever changing, right? So our training's always ever change as well, right? There's so many new things that we have to be trained on. But I think we always say we train often, so it's not necessarily to train. Sometimes it is to train on new things, but it's also to keep it at top of mind so people don't just become complacent, right? But they're always thinking and being vigilant for security, right? So yes, I think training and more frequent training potentially could help us solve that issue. We've seen it across our board, right? We've started, if we look at like a lot of our phishing scams, we started in a 30 to 50 percentile range and then over a year bring it down to, in a lot of cases, less than 5%. So it's pretty good.
Here's a stat from KnowBe4, which is one of our partners. This is a great stat right here, just on that topic. KnowBe4 is one of our partners. Here's a stat from 2022. 9.5 million users. This is like survey based off 9.5 million users, right? As a baseline, when they introduce KnowBe4 or any kind of phishing program, and you email it out to your environment, to your employees, 32% of employees click on stuff, right? The idea is when you start implementing a frequency of training, right? You first of all, you educate your employees, you train them, and then you got to phish them yourself internally. You talk about that a little bit?
So we send fake phishing emails all the time, right? And the goal is, when we talk about phishing internally, you have, let's call it, hackers that are trying to get in and get information. But who would you rather do? Somebody that's safe, friendly, your neighborhood IT guy, if you will, or somebody that's trying to use that information. So we always try to do it as well, just the same way that a hacker would. And if we do trick somebody, they do click on it, we then train them again. Essentially, we make it fun. It's not a "I got you" kind of thing, but more a "let me help you" kind of thing, just so we can make things better. And Dustin's laughing over there, man. But that's ultimately the goal, right? Yeah. Does it make sense?
When you're sitting down with CEOs of companies, how are you structuring this? How are you telling them about setting up a security awareness program?
Well, it is detailed, right? So the goal is to, figure out a cadence on training. Like, how often do we send it out? How often do we send fake phishing emails? I mean, even that is an art, right? We've done phishing emails where we send it all at the same time. Then it's kind of this thing within the office. Everybody don't click on this, right? And you're not effectively gauging.
So you're saying if you're sending all the emails at the same time,
exactly,
to all the employees.
Yeah. So it needs to be very randomized. It needs to be like specific. And so you're really trying to catch somebody off guard.
Yeah.
And they can't tell it's yours versus something else. We all get them. Everybody on this listening to this thing, man, has gotten a phishing email. And probably so many.
Even on the cyber insurance side, if you have cyber insurance and you're not doing this, good luck getting a claim approved.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to be doing this. If you look at this stat, after 12 months of implementing some level of training, right, and phishing your employees and catching them and educating them and telling them, hey, you got to do that training again, and raising that awareness up, that percentage goes down from 32.4% down to 5% 12 months later.
Yeah. Well, that's, just the phishing is one part of it, right? So you're also, at the same time, you're sending them a training video, usually like 45 minutes long.
Yeah.
They're watching that. They're taking a test. You make it fun. But there's an informational aspect to it too, right? That you have to do, because it's not just phishing. It's what they do, right, when they phish you. Like, they're trying to get your password. You're clicking a link and downloading a virus called ransomware in most cases. So it's all the above. So there is a training aspect that helps bring that score down, is essentially what I'm saying.
So highly recommended if you don't have this, some level of a phishing program in your
security awareness training.
Yeah, security awareness training. We're entering into Security Awareness Month, so this is perfect.
Yeah.
If you don't have some level of security awareness training in your company, you got to set this up now more than ever.
It's so important. It's like one of the things. Tell them about the graphic. I don't know if we could throw it up there, but we usually show a graphic where you show Dave in the corner and all this technology in the other corner was in a newspaper article we found a long time ago. But it's so true. You could set up all of these. You could put in or install these technologies, man. But human error is the one thing, that you have to train on, essentially, right? And so it's so important that we do that.
You have this article that you found. Can you touch on this really quick?
Well, for those of you guys that don't know, I'll quickly just kind of outline ransomware. It's been a while that it's been out, and it's been growing every year that we've been in business, which has been a while, and it's just gotten to be this monstrous kind of division where they're making billions and billions of dollars every year. I don't know the number, but it's got to be $20 billion or something, maybe even more this year that of ransomwares that have happened and people have paid in Bitcoin typically. So ransomware, just for everybody that doesn't know, is a virus that gets on your computer and it encrypts your devices and your files and folders, usually like pictures, documents, those types of things, and any network drive that's attached. So usually for corporations, it starts to spread throughout because it's their file servers and all those types of things. And then to get those files and folders back, you have to pay a ransom in Bitcoin, depending on the size of the company. The ransom is big or small. And there's no way for us, we haven't now found a way to unencrypt those files because they use military grade encryption. So the only way, and that's part of where we started off, the only way is to either pay the ransom or you have backups. And hopefully you have backups. And, even if you have backups, you're down, you've got to restore it. You've probably got to wipe those computers. So you have some downtime and those types of things. So even some corporations that have had backups are like, let me just pay the ransom so I can just get back up and running. But we've heard a couple of, big companies in the last, I think, couple of months that have got hit by ransomware even to this day and been down for weeks.
I just watched the season 3, episode 2 of The Morning Show. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. I mean, the show's okay in my opinion. But the episode is they get hit with a ransomware attack. And it is pandemonium. It's craziness. I mean, just to see the visceral experience of a ransomware attack in a show like that.
Yeah.
And the CISO comes in and he's having to take time to find stuff and they're rushing him to try to get answers. And he's like, you got to give me some time. I just got here. Like, I need to figure out what patient 0 is. Like, where did source come from and all that stuff. It's really wild. Read that stat, Sam. This is yours right here.
Yeah. So this one's really interesting. According to Coveware, in Q4 2021, the average decryption fee, so basically what somebody would pay a hacker to decrypt their files, was $322,000, 130% increase from the previous quarter.
Yeah. Now, you're talking about a year.
That's right. And then it says, interestingly, as many as 84% of the attackers still made their victims' data public. So that's crazy.
That's amazing. Yeah, the attackers made their victims' data public.
Yeah.
Do you think about that, right? Like, you're never guaranteed when you pay the ransomware attack.
That's it. I mean, right?
You're never guaranteed. So, going back to that main point you made at the beginning, is how do you prevent that? How can you get back up and running? Can you talk about something? Can you talk about RTO a little bit? Because this is RTO particularly is an interesting one. I'm going to bring up a slide while you're talking.
So RTO stands for Recovery Time Objective, and it's kind of one of those things you put together in what we call a disaster recovery plan on the IT side of things. We're going to go into a little bit technical mumbo jumbo here, but the recovery time objective is how fast can we, if something happens, how fast can we get things up, or how fast do we want it to get up? And based off of that, you design systems and all those things in place to essentially get it back up. So Shadi and myself at Technology, we might want to be back up in an hour, where other people can be back up, in 24 hours. So if we're the ones, if our RTO is 1 hour, that probably means not only that do we just have to have backups, but we probably need to replicate that data on a separate laptop somewhere. And if something happened to this laptop, we could just immediately open that one or whatever it is, right? So there's lots of different ways to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
But it's creating those things in place, and we do those in the disaster recovery plan.
Yeah, I think of everybody's RTO goal. Mm-hmm. I mean, they want it as fast as possible, but there is I love that expression. If you want it fast and cheap, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Then the quality is not going to be great. But the idea is, if you want it fast, it's going to be expensive, right? So you look at manufacturing facilities that have a production of let's just say $1 million an hour, right? They're doing 24/7, $365 million a year. If they're down for a day, that costs them $8 million. So the recovery time objective on that, they need to be back up ASAP. So the idea of investing into an infrastructure that's redundant, redundant circuits, redundant power, right? Just making sure that they have warm spares ready to go on their network side, right? The idea that that they would spend $1 million to make sure that their RTO is within an hour and is tested. And I want to talk to you about testing schedule in a second, but the idea of an RTO within an hour, $1 million makes total sense. Do it
Right.
now. Break it up over the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want to do.
Well, it's,
Capitalize
I
it.
mean, we say that, and that's, to all us business owners that are out there, right? That's the thing.
That's right.
I mean, we say that, oh man, we can spend $1 million. It's really hard to convince business owners to spend. They're like, oh, what do I need this for? I don't need it today. This is just for in case of.
In case of.
But let me tell you, when we're in that emergency mode, they'll spend, you lose
Do
so
whatever.
much more money, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's really hard to convince people to like just spend that money up front. Like in the case of $1 million, think about it. You're just spending $1 million just for, equipment and hardware that's just going to sit on the sidelines until you need it. They're spares. That's
Which
a
is
tough
why,
pill to swallow.
by the way, when we interview or the customers interview us to be the potential IT provider, we interview them too,
That's right. Yeah.
because we're saying, look, are you willing to be strategic? Are you willing to look at it from all angles? Because you got to now. You got to think of. I mean, you said it, I think, in a previous podcast where you said that this everything is connected to IT now in a lot of ways. You can't function without it in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh man. And the point, I think we all, I don't know, maybe the younger ones don't remember, but I remember a day where we're playing Dig Dug on a green screen and all those kinds of things. And I remember my dad, who's an accountant at the time, have these big books, man, of like the bookkeeping ledgers. Now, can you imagine doing that? You can't, right? I mean, you have to have your computer to do your work. And so it's not a, IT is unfortunately, but it's no longer this kind of side function where you just need it, but I'm not going to put effort and time and money into it. But it's such a critical function, just like finances in any part of business. Same with IT. It's one of those things, man. Without it, it's hard to do. It's hard to work. We're seeing a lot of companies, man, that do a lot of things, right? Let's call them logistics or manufacturing or whatever, that are no longer calling themselves manufacturing logistics, but they're calling themselves tech companies that do this service, right?
So true.
And that's how, how dependent we are.
Isn't that
technology,
thought
man.
wild? A logistics company, hey, we're a tech company. I love it.
Yeah,
It makes a lot of sense.
And they are.
Their whole technology is dependent on it. They're working on automation. They're working on making things more efficient. You think about the integration of AI and
Yeah.
all of the machine learning stuff that's happening. It's crazy. So going back to this manufacturing, that makes more sense to a person like that, right? But the general small business user, what's like in terms of RTO? What are some things that can really impact RTO in a positive way?
Well, so
RTO, recovery time objective.
recovery
We do
time
this a lot.
That's
Sometimes.
right. So the best thing is to buy spare hardware, right? Because a lot of times if we have backups and we don't have spare hardware, we have to order something. Let's say in the case of a laptop gets not necessarily malware, but it's stolen, it's broken, it's whatever, right? If we don't have spares, our RTO is affected by how quick we can get something, right? And a lot of times you can't just go to a Best Buy or Costco because they might not have the right hardware, the
Right.
business enterprise type hardware that you're looking for. So having some sort of a spare, whether it's one or a couple laying around, or in our case, we partner with our clients and we stack the spare. So we'll buy hardware and keep it here so they don't have to spend it, but we'll have it readily available
Right.
for them so that we can, in a moment's notice, get it ready for them. Not to push our agenda, but anyways, that's what we do. And then secondly, I think, deciding in a backup scenario, right, how fast you want the data. So we're all limited by our internet. Typically, if we do like what we call cloud backups. So cloud backups are, we back up files and folders and send them over the internet to servers and data centers, right? And hopefully they're doing their thing to keep it all safe. And a lot of times you have to find the right provider to make that happen. But let's say something happens and we need to download it. Our limit there is how fast can we download this data? So a second thing to do is keep a local copy of that data. If your RTO needs to be relatively quickly, you need to keep a local copy of that data and sync it with the cloud. So those are two small things. There's a lot of other things, but those are two small things.
I also think about like if you have the budget, get dual internet circuits,
Sure.
right? And that also, it's not only necessarily a ransomware attack. It could be inclement weather.
Yeah,
It could be a storm of some sort.
acts of God. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was this amazing IT company up in Canada. and I had the chance to visit their offices back in 2015, I think, but they had an office space in case a business got, lit on fire or something like that, some disaster happened. They had an office space just for companies to come into.
Mm-hmm.
Man, so imagine the recovery time on that.
Yeah.
My gosh. So recovery time is not just specifically ransomware attacks, but it could be inclement weather, it could be fire, it could be a death of a critical employee, it could be a physical piece of hardware failing. I mean, the discussions, we talked about, we've talked about the idea of like what succession planning would look like if something happened to us. 17% of companies have a succession plan. Yeah. Right? A recovery time objective essentially is that idea. It's like for your data, for your network, for your operations, for how you can continue moving that forward.
Yeah.
It's really
actually the recovery time objective is the goal. The disaster recovery plan is the succession plan, right? Like in total, what are we going to do? And the RTO is part of that plan. So if you guys don't have that, a lot of like what you talked about earlier, the cybersecurity insurance policies, which nowadays is almost mandated. If you don't have one, you need to get one for everybody listening. But they will require you to have a disaster recovery plan, put something together. So. Yeah. It's one of those things that's pretty important. Maybe we could put together in the links here some information on that, and you guys can go read up on those things. But
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
On this slide right here, we do talk about it's not if, but when you will be hacked, right? Mm-hmm. And we educate our customers or anybody we speak to on this stuff. This idea that, in any organizational environment, there's a likelihood that something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Whether it's an employee clicking on an email. If you think about it, it's the greatest risk and allowing it to come in. And let's just say that everything gets encrypted. We got to define the recovery time. We got to put a strategy together. Talk about the data protection strategy. Like what areas are we safeguarding? It's on this slide, obviously, but can you touch on the areas that are important to safeguard?
Yeah. I mean,
especially for the business owner who's thinking, I just got to safeguard my computer files.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the most important part to safeguard, and they're all important, but one of the most important is your email. That is the communication form. And a lot of the times where we see a lot of people store their documents and different things through email.
In Teams or Google Drive. Yeah.
So it's a myth, and maybe you could talk because you talk about it all the time, but Office 365, it's a myth that can't be affected, A lot of times we've seen so many people's Office 365 accounts get hacked. Or heard about it anyways. And, then they go in there, delete their emails and delete the histories and those different types of things. And so keeping that in place. And again, we're not just talking about like hackers getting in, but we're also talking about just accidentally, hey, we're moving a file from one window to another and something happened. Now all my files are gone. What do we do? Right. In those cases, that's a disaster. It's not necessarily a disaster of like somebody maliciously tried to do something against you, but you accidentally did something. So in those cases too, you want to have those backups in place. But email and Office 365 is usually what we see for people's email, but it could be Google, it could be Office 365, it could be a lot of different email platforms that you're using. Yeah. But that's one thing to definitely keep backed up. OneDrive, Dropbox, Box, those applications, keeping those backed up and separate from just, you would hope those guys are doing a good job backing it up themselves and protecting it. I know a lot of them.
Who's those guys?
Dropbox, Office 365,
third-party
OneDrive,
services,
whatever, right?
Okay.
But having another separate, offsite backup from those applications. So we call this like somewhere else, whether it's locally in your office or you're using a different provider in the cloud that's keeping a separate synced copy of those things is pretty important. And we always recommend that.
Something like massive number of emails are tied into Google and Office 365 for sure. The winner there is Office 365 because of the corporate side and the enterprise side. I mean, there's so many integrations of backup solutions into those. But if you do use kind of like, a domain email platform, that's out there. If you use any kind of other platform, you might not have backups readily available, solutions readily available for those kind of platforms to make sure, kind of like what you're saying. Email is considered a third-party service. So just like Sam was saying, like Box, Dropbox, and all those guys, although they do a good job maintaining uptime and making sure that you have access to your stuff, if something does happen, you got to back up your third-party services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want it to be, we always think like these big guys like Google and Microsoft, and I don't know if we always think this, but a lot of people do, that these big guys don't get infiltrated or hacked, right? But they're almost sometimes the biggest ones that get infiltrated and hacked, and they plug it up and they have a really good incident response plans. But point of my story is like we just can't be just so trusting. We need to have some other verification, something else we're using to ensure that all of our data is backed up. And that's what we always recommend, is keeping somewhere else. So coming back to this slide, if we talk about email, we talk about all your file storage applications, like again, OneDrive, Dropbox, those types of things.
That's right.
And anything local, super important. Whether you save it on your desktop, Word, Excel, PowerPoint files, all really important. So just keeping those is a good start. And then from there, once you determine what you want backed up, that's when it starts to go into these RTOs and disaster recovery plans.
So the three that we've talked about so far, the endpoints, the email platforms, your third-party services, essentially your physical cloud servers, those are three main ones we got to get backups of and define a recovery time, right? The last part, the fourth one that I love to talk about, is your critical company IT data. The idea that your IT guy is always going to be with you, or girl, whoever, your IT person is going to be with you, will never leave the company abruptly. Mm-hmm. The idea that they're going to give you a 2-week notice, which, by the way, freak out. The idea of an IT person leaving
just like that,
just last minute. If you don't have your stuff backed up and you're not inspecting it, there's a saying I learned: you got to inspect what you expect. And I'm not saying it's easy, because we know it as business owners. It's not easy, but you have to start putting the processes in place to inspect the most critical aspects. I think our job, you're way more in the weeds with the IT side. I'm more looking at risk management and doing a whole bunch of stuff on the company side here. The idea that we can wait to figure out some things is crazy. So you have to back up your critical IT data. You have to have it periodically updated on a regular basis. And you got to be able to review it with your IT person. If something happened to your IT person and they left, you don't understand how many IT environments, guys, that we come into where there's no IT data.
Yeah.
And it takes 3 times as long to onboard a customer because there's no IT data. Our encouragement to you guys is to start putting the things in place to keep your IT folks accountable. We don't mind it internally. We have to.
IT guys are sometimes the most trusted guys because they really have access to, everything. Whether they look at it or not, it's a different story, but they have it because they need it because to support you, fix it, whatever it is. And so if you think about what they have access to, you need to know what they have access to, number one, what's the username and passwords they're using, and be transparent about it, because and a lot of times if you're the business owner, it's your data, right? And you want to not feel held hostage, whether somebody's doing a good job, or hopefully in most cases they are, but what if they're not? And you're just, gritting because you haven't kept that data backed up and stuff. So that is a super encouragement. If you're not doing it today, do it today. Get your backups of IT. Start there. That'd be the first place to start. What is my admin passwords? Keep them somewhere safe, locked up. Don't write them and stick them on your monitor, of course, but or under your keyboard.
Yeah.
But write it up, keep it safe, lock it up. So you just have it in case of something happens.
And if you don't know where to start, one of the tools that we utilize is IT Glue. You can look them up. It's a very popular one, HIPAA compliant, SOC 2 compliant. It's a great tool to be able to capture information. And not only that, processes around IT, right? Documentation around IT. So this technician is doing X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So making sure your company data is backed up is the fourth component of this. All of these things we live and breathe. It's so important. And then in the strategic meetings with your IT director or your IT manager, IT employee, y'all need to define what that recovery time objective is. Mm-hmm. and start working a plan. It might not be realistic. You tell your IT guy, I want to be up in a minute. Good luck. It's not going to happen. But you want to be up in an hour or even in a day, just depending how you structure it.
Everything is possible.
What's that?
And they always say everything is possible. It just costs some money, right?
It costs some money.
That's the big question. How much money? I mean, that's a big part of the disaster recovery plan is how much money are we willing to put towards this? Because in a lot of cases, it's just secondary, it's backup. It's not needed for day-to-day use. It's in case of, right? So it's your insurance policy. How much do you really want to spend on IT insurance and disaster recovery?
One thing I think it'd be great to talk about from owner to owner. If you're running a company today, let me tell you guys a story. When I meet with CEOs, I ask them one very specific question, and I say, when you get your reports from your IT folks, what are the KPIs or metrics that matter the most to you? And 9 out of 10 CEOs say, what reports?
Right. Yeah.
This idea that hold on a second, that's a very good point. Oh, what happened? I mean, so the idea that when I talk to people and their first answer is, we're frustrated with our IT folks. I'm saying, how are your backups? Oh, they're great. Our backups are great. When's the last time you checked your backups? Mm-hmm. Do you understand that we have these tools that we utilize that are also third-party tools that fail backups? I mean, you could tell them how many times backups fail. I mean, we had one time, I remember 4, 5, 6 times a month, backups were failing for clients.
That's right. Yeah.
You have to inspect that on a daily basis.
It happens all the time. And it's not necessarily, so yeah, I mean, you have to inspect these things. Not only that, you can't just, even if it says it's backed up, do you have the right data in there, right? What are you missing? So a lot of times it's just kind of, are we backing up everything we should be backing up? That's
right.
part of the inspection process, right?
Right.
And what you're talking about is if you're not an IT guy, do you know that the backups are happening? So that's where those reports are really, you need some form of trust and hope that, whoever you've hired to do IT is doing those backups. But you also want to verify, right? Trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
And get those reports.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we're at the point in time in history, in the environment that we're in, is that attacks and security risks are going to increase.
Yeah.
That's why you buy insurance. That's why you actually get cybersecurity insurance. The idea that potentially something could happen. Mm-hmm. But if the cyber insurance company doesn't really care about your backups, right? They care that you did the things correctly to be able to provide you a claim. So you're really on your own. You're on an island of your own. If you can file a claim to get downtime recovered with your insurance provider, you're on your own, though, if you have no data. Mm-hmm. I mean, your data is so critical to your operations most of the time. And so when I meet with these CEOs, it's like an epiphany, it's realization that man, I have been too busy with the whirlwind, which we get, and I've been too busy in the weeds of my business to look at the risk management side of my company. And the need for owners to understand, hey, this is one of those critical checklists. We go in and categorize our expenses on a daily basis because we care about the money and we make sure we're making a profit and stuff like that. But if you don't have backups, it's critical. And sometimes I think we're on a soapbox because we're IT guys, right?
Sure. We're
but
a little bit biased.
But I hope that the message is coming across to you guys how critical it is. And I hope that the insight around our experiences with other owners, the idea that most owners are not inspecting IT reports, are not reviewing the backups, are not reviewing the reports on what percentage of their employees are clicking on stuff. So I think is a wake up call. It probably is the norm in the world, right? And we hope that we can influence that a little bit with you guys and just get you guys. If there's anything we could do, we love your comments. If there's any resources we can provide, I'm totally up for that.
Yeah.
Sure, man. Any other thoughts, Sam?
No, I mean, I think just to recap what you're saying, man, it's so important. Backups are the thing. For all you business owners out there, make sure you have in your budgets an IT line item that you're allocating enough money towards it for these kinds of things. So because when you need it, you'll be willing to pay whatever it takes. And so it's not the if, it's the when, unfortunately. in this day and age, it's the when. And so we're all just preparing for that. But yeah, man, I think
That's
this is
good.
fun.
So on this podcast, guys, we touch base on fishing, right? This idea that you need to train your employees, because we're talking about backups, right? You know, errors are going to happen. You got to have your backups. But what leads us to have to go to our backups most of the time is phishing attacks or a ransomware attack that happens. So you got to train your employees. You got to fish them, right? You got to send fake emails to them. You got to allow them to know when they've clicked on something. You got to retrain them.
Yeah.
You got to raise the security awareness up in your company. You got to get cyber insurance if you don't have cyber insurance. And
And you
there's
have to
maybe
have
some we can
backups.
recommend in the
Yeah.
last part. Of course, you have to
gotta
have
have
backups.
That's it.
And we hope that this information was really helpful for you guys. We'd love a like, we'd love a share, we'd love a comment, love a subscribe, do all that. Does you have any final thoughts?
That's it, man. Yeah, and I think we've got some next couple of episodes coming up. It should be pretty fun. Change the topics a little bit after this IT one. It's gonna be good, man. So we're gonna stay tuned, keep up. We're trying to figure out some good content so it's not it's relevant to the day and age. So
That's
it's
something
good.
you guys can share if there's some good content.
Yeah, we've got some
topics.
We've got some good guests coming up, man. That I think too that you guys are gonna like, and we're reaching out. And if any of you guys are experts, you guys want to come on, man, hit us up.
We'd love that.
Yeah, hit us up.
Yeah, and also make sure to go check out Wayne's episode. I mean, it was Wayne Stevens, one of our team members. We probably have a link pop up right now. But yeah, we really appreciate you guys. Thank you. If there's again any topics, please send us some comments. And if this content is good, give us a like and share it on your feeds. And that's it.
All right, man. Till
Thank
the
you
next
guys.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.